Today we are wrapping the Sony 300mm lens. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, is to make sure it's free from debris and oil. You do not want any dust specks to be stuck underneath the skin. So after you clean it, it is at your discretion to figure out which piece you want to install first. For myself, I do like to start from the top to the bottom. So the first thing I want to note is this does have a button section here, so we'll go over that. So once we go over the button, we'll follow this piece to the end. Make sure it doesn't overlap any of that, and it should just fall into place perfectly. Go over the Sony logo, make sure everything is aligned, like so. And once you get to the end, again, I'm not stretching the skin, I'm just tugging at it so it goes down more flat. Once you get to the end, it should just fall into place. It should not overlap too much, and it should not be short on the edge. Go ahead and go over it with your fingers. If there's any bubbles, you can push it out. These do have air release channels. This is also in sequential order, so it goes from the top to the bottom. So obviously the lens hood's on the top. We're gonna go ahead and peel this off. And this one does have a cutout for the dot, so we'll go over the dot. If you mess up, you can just lightly peel it off and try it again. Now that we got the lens hood covered, go ahead and put in that button section. So once we're done with the lens hood, we'll move on to the lens itself. Now when we're doing the G logo, you want to be mindful of the orientation. So this way is up and this way is down. So the seam will go down, and we'll just place that while being very mindful of the bottom edge. We're not making sure we're not going over it. Normally, if you have one section perfectly aligned, the rest will fall right into place. Now here's something to note. If you notice that there is a gap, normally it means there's some air gaps here, which I can definitely feel. So we'll go ahead and slowly tug it over. And it should close the gap perfectly, like so. Now we're ready to move on to the other pieces. And the second piece that you're putting on should not overlap. It should always be right next to it seamlessly. Since this is free spinning, it doesn't really matter where you start, but just note that when you start it, that's where you're gonna continue. Again, all our skins are precision cuts, so you really don't need to stretch it, but some areas I do feel like a tug is required just so it can wrap around the contours. Now moving on to the badge and the switches. Again, you want to be gentle when peeling. For these intricate pieces, I do like to peel from both sides. So we'll start with the 300 badge. I like to just hover over and just get the corners and edges in. Once everything is perfectly aligned, it should just fall into place. And what's cool with these lenses is you can just rotate each barrel. That was probably the easiest one. So if you have any questions on where each piece goes, you can also scan the QR code that's on the packaging, and that will guide you to an installation map showing where all the pieces go. So for this section, we're gonna line up the 300 as perfect as possible. Should just fall into place. And now this section, for the wheel, there is a cutout, so you could just slot that in, like so. If you have really good dexterity, installation is pretty much a breeze. While we're still on the 300, I do want to note that the cutouts are actually here. So if you want to fill in the 300s, go ahead and peel this, and then it should reveal itself to have all the little 0 cutouts. So just using my nails here, just place that in, and you're filled in. And the rest of the pieces are pretty straightforward. that's it. And that is your wrapped 300mm lens from Sony. Beautiful in our Gridlock design. And it really masks off that white, really bright look. This is really important if you're shooting wildlife and you don't want to be very conspicuous. Applying a camouflage or some kind of texture to hide it is really beneficial. Also, it protects it from scratches and it looks amazing. So check it out at alphagvrd.com.